the Mbawula Chat. It's going to be facilitated by Bulelani. The gentleman that we're going to bring up, Mr. Gazi, founder of Kgotla, PR and Communications. Rustenburg, spent his entire childhood here, but he will share more about that. A storyteller, chairman of a foundation as well. Yeah, he's traveled and he works and serves as a brand ambassador for Brand South Africa, Play Your Part. So we'll hear more about his story, his journey, what they're currently doing, PR, communications. We'll have a few questions, announce our winner, have something to eat, and then it's a wrap. Are we having wraps? Maybe. Hey, I'm flowing today. Oh, like a water. B, can you come through? Bulelani. Once again, remember the Nedbank pocket pause. Because usane ba re price e. Yeah, usane. I get it. Yeah. All right. B, please come through. Mr. Gazi? Oh, she's up. All right, I think he's just quickly finishing off a deal. He's on the phone. He's a busy man. All right, my brother, thank you so much. Please, can we put our hands together for Mr. Gazi? I'll come on, born and bred. Let's show some love.
Why are you? Oh, I think it's a three-way. So, ladies and gents, you just joined. No, man. Thank you so much for hanging out this long. This part of the chat is where we talk to a local entrepreneur. It's called the Mbawula Chat. Mbawula Chat, similar to, at this Naha Kola, being raised by my granddad, Daniel Balabala, is an amazing gent. He used to have us around Mbawula, because I kept Khuleti Tembis. I didn't have a lot of Lali experience, Lali, So we did it go Tembisa. Then he tell us stories from childhood, and then there was guidance in terms of how you behave as a young man, what your lineage is, where you come from. So thus we then deemed this the Mbawula Chat, and the relevance of having someone local, someone you can point to, someone you can reach out to, someone you can say, Moto Adakamtseba, or comes from the almost similar background as me. You're not generator. The same one that they're giving out. Oh, sorry. This is so not professional. Oh, Bulelani. Anyway, we're going to continue. So, we've got this amazing gentleman here with me, Mr. Nnusi Gazi. Rustenburg, born and bred. Thank you so much for giving us your time today. I know it's a busy one for you because of you're busy with the World Cup. Is it started? No, not yet. But maybe, okay, now I'm talking like you're familiar, and I'm pretending as if I don't know you. Maybe just tell us, we don't know you, I don't know you. Tell us a bit about who you are, where you come from. Maybe let's start there, and then we'll sort of just grow our conversation from there.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry about the delay jumping off my seat there. So, Kinnamang, Nnusi Gazi. I don't think I was born here, but I grew up here. Niginakorami district. And you know, my parents then moved Ragohelotu, and I've lived in Rustenburg all my entire life. Moved out of here in 2008, 2006 rather. Moved to Cape Town, spent some time there, moved back, and I've been around. So I'm one of the 6 children that my parents had. So I'm the second oldest. My parents understood what it meant, how would they be fruitful and multiply. So I'm the second of the 6, and I've got 5 siblings, obviously because we are 6, 1 sister and 4 other siblings that come after me. A computer science graduate. So I schooled more Rustenburg. LD Matshego was my primary school. Moved from there, Kgatsheng Middle School, from there, did my matric go HF. So from there, I had to make a decision about what do I want to study, because everybody that I knew was either a mining engineer, an accountant, electrical engineer, and I decided to go off the grid and went and studied computer sciences. And what was weird about that is that, I knew grade 11 that I needed to go study further, but it was a conflict between, do I then go pursue what my mother wanted me to pursue, which was, in my mother's head, God rest her soul, she thought I was a doctor. At some point, she thought I was going to be a lawyer. So, 1, I can't stand open wounds, so I don't see how I was going to be a doctor. 2, I think I could become a lawyer. I could. Because I'm always intrigued and I'm always fascinated by people wearing robes and standing there and say objection, and so I find that very fascinating. But I think in that moment I realized that there is more to me than just becoming a lawyer. There was a lot that I felt that I needed to do. I just did not know what it was. And my next love was computers. So I then decided I'm going to study computer sciences. And I went and studied computer sciences, completed, came back, worked 1 year in that field, and completely left it. So I've never done anything IT related since the year after I graduated, right? I've done anything and everything. So I worked in a call center at one of the days. I remember my first job was at Brand House. So for those of you that don't know, Brand House does jewels, right? So I worked, and my one account was JNB. So that's the account that I worked on. And then from there, then moved, and I worked for another company called IINet, which was an ISP, coming out of Australia. So they had a thing called back in the Sun Principle. So follow the Sun Principle means, because there's a 9-hour delay between us and Australia. So when they shut down in Australia or they go to bed, we are waiting to make sure that they needed to make sure that the call center works around the clock. So that if you're sitting in Perth or Melbourne and you're calling, at no point should you hear saying, we can't help you, right? So then they opened an office in Cape Town, and I was one of the people that they took in to work in their call center. Left that call center, went and worked for Caltex, the filling station. So they also had a call center there, where all the Caltex now, I think it's now called Estron Energies. Whenever you needed diesel, you just needed to call and say, give out a place of 40,000 liters of diesel. But you can't do that SMS. You now needed to call a call center, and that's where I then worked again. And then from there moved, decided I can't do this whole job hopping thing in Cape Town anymore. Moved back to Joburg. So coincidentally, the 29th of May, just the other day, marked exactly 14 years since I packed up my life in Cape Town and moved back to Joburg without a job but a plan, right? So my plan was, I can't work like this anymore, so I needed to come back home. But now I come back home as how old was I? I think I was about 25, 26 at the time. If my math is horrible. No, it can't be 25, 26. I was born 84, 2009, I moved back. So you do the maths. So moved back to Joburg with a plan, but no job. And I think I spent 6 months of my life unemployed. And then in that moment, I decided something's gotta give. So I then worked for Discovery Medical Aid, spent a year there, moved from there, went and worked for Discovery Credit Card. I got bored in the process, and we'll talk about how I get bored at jobs very quickly. So I got bored at Discovery Credit Card, then moved to F&B, and I worked there as a risk manager. Spent literally 7 months at F&B, and then I left the job because I had 3 other jobs over and above the Discovery job that over and above the F&B job that I had. Left that F&B job because it felt a bit redundant, and also the thought of working with other people's money that I can't even have in my pocket also frustrated me to an extent. So then left and you know, partnered with other lady who was running a business where she was buying and reselling computers. So she would go buy 200 computers, and then I would call and say, I need 15 computers. I need to lease them out. So she would then do that. And I got, you know, interested in that kind of line of work. And then she then said to me, because I'm based in La Lucia in KZN, I need somebody who's based in Joburg who's going to run the business for me. I knew nothing about that kind of business, but I jumped at it and I did it. So I worked for that business for a couple of months. And then I started my own business. So the first business that I started, are we there yet? Or can I pause? Okay. No, but I feel like I'm talking all by myself. And that's how I then got into business, amongst the many other things that I did. And up until to the point that we are today, but I'm not gonna fast forward and deny you the other nice things in between.
Yeah, so no, the thing is you didn't go too far ahead. In actual fact, you led nicely into my entrepreneurial question, right? And I think that would have been, so how does the entrepreneurial bug now bite? And where did the journey start? What did you start with?
I think the bug had always been there. I remember back when I was doing matric, if not grade 11, I had an idea of starting an internet cafe combined with a coffee shop. Right, so before you had Seattle and Exclusive Books partnering and giving you a coffee shop and a bookshop all at once, I wanted to open up an internet cafe with a coffee shop attached to it. And I remember, for those of you that are old enough, go to Shoponda before what the shop is today. Mokoning after that hardware store, right? So Dr. Sfanyetso was there for many years, and then she then moved her practice somewhere else. So that office became vacant for the longest of time. And then I was like, no, man, it's a nice spot for an internet cafe and a coffee shop here. And then I went to Tropong, Komrahocha, Jusaps. There used to be a telecom shop there, right? And I said to them, I want to start a coffee shop, I want to start an internet cafe, go Tlhabane, but I'm not sure if there's the right infrastructure, right? So this lady looks at me and says, so what do you know about internet cafes and what do you know about infrastructure? I said, I read, so that's what I know. So I need you to dispatch somebody to go to Shopong and check if there's the right infrastructure there that we can start a coffee shop, to go start an internet cafe. They sent people out and said, yes, you can do this thing, right? And then I was 16, 17, I put together a business plan, and I went and I met some other Indian chap who was prepared to give me funding to go start this thing. And I could not do this thing alone, so I then said to 3 of my friends, I think we can go make money somewhere, let's go start an internet cafe and a coffee shop. So we then registered a business, and I even actually saw it the other day on CPSC website. Back then it was still called CPRO. So the internet cafe was called FTT Lanet. I don't know how we came up with that name, but yeah, that's what we called it. So we then put together a business plan, went to see this guy, and then said to us, I love your business idea, but lebana, so I can't sign this thing with you. I need your parents or your guardians to come and sign this agreement. Excited as I was, so I took this thing to my parents and I said to them, hey, Kinale thought of starting a business, you know, and I went to start an internet cafe and a coffee shop. My dad looked at me in the eyes and says, "Wala wala, not in this lifetime." And I'm like, "How this guy?" And he says to me, "Who do you know who's got a business?" I'm like, "Yeah, mara ntate mama ngwana le butchara. Ko Rametsi ko ke start sell after Rametsi kana. Ke mothuka after Rametsi." Yeah. Kire khona le kwa sugar, khona le shop ka da, we know that guy. Ntate is the roommate ku guy on the taxi. So I know, I don't know, but who do you know in your life? Not the people that you grew up with. Who do you know in your life who's got a business? And I'm like, no one, right? And he says to me, so yes, this thing of starting businesses, right? So, and I knew back then that eventually at some point this is gonna happen. I just did not know when, but in my head I was like, there's no way this thing can just come and die there. And I, you know, disappointed as I was, you know, killed the dream and went back to school and I studied. So unlike other people that thought, no, I did not do that. But in my head, I knew that at some point I'll need to start a business. I just did not know what kind of business I needed to start, but I knew waking up in the morning and going to go work for another person was not what I wanted to do. I'll just hold it. Yeah, here. Okay, sorry. I tend to fidget a lot when I get nervous. Not that I'm nervous, I'm just saying when I do. You know, so I somehow knew that I was gonna do this. I just did not know how. I just did not know when, and I just did not know what exactly I wanted to do, right? And this was my first business at the age of 17 that did not see the light of day. Went and studied, graduated, came back, and I started my other business. I think it was called Spiffy Cleaning Services. So when I moved back from Cape Town, I lived in Midrand for like a while. And then I realized that every house in my complex, auntie, almost every single day. So house number 1, Monday, number 2, Tuesday, number 3, fella. But these people were not live-in aunties. When they needed to come through. So then I had a chat with a few of them that started coming. So let's chat about guy, right? And I'm like, okay. Why? And I'm like, no, I'm just asking. So then I started a business called Spiffy Cleaning Services, or Spiffy on Call, as we started being known eventually, where I would then say to you, if you need an auntie, call me. I'll get you an auntie. For $250, I'll get you an auntie. Pay auntie 150 rand and then take the 100 rand back, right? So the biggest mistake that I made in hindsight was that, gents, problem. So, so the biggest mistake that I made was that I started a business with my partner back then. So I quit my job and I then started doing this business. And then the business was doing very well. So every month we knew what I know business. So I think on a 30-day calendar we had about clients for like 20 days, 22 days at best, right? So we can still diversify. So you've got a young couple who don't have an auntie living in the house, but only baby nyana, and a date nights are important. Gents, you must take your girls on dates. So date nights are very important. So now you can't go on date nights because so we can then start an au pair business. So over and above us cleaning your house for you, we can still look after your child, right? So because we then knew, okay, there's 190 units here, 60 of them have got babies, 30 of them have a living helper, 3 of them but they're not of an older age to look after themselves, right? So we can then, if you want to go and have lunch with your girls or with your boys, right? So that business also worked for like a while, and then we broke up. So with the other girl, we broke up, and then right? So I then made an emotional decision about the business, which then was to my own detriment because the girl had a job. So whether the business was doing well or not, she had a job. Nah, I had the business. If the business fails, Lina, a child, so that business failed, and I took a lot of lessons out of it. And then I went back to go look for a job now. I needed a 9 to 5. So then I started, knocking on doors again. I got hired. Where was I working again? Can't remember where I was working, but it was another call center job that I did. And then, then I decided I'm gonna start doing radio in between all of this thing. I'd never done radio before, but what I knew I had was the passion for radio, right? So I then drove past a taxi one day at a radio station. I'm like, taxi driver go follow after robot. Jumped off a taxi, went back in there, knocked and says, Span as a radio presenter. But I'm here, I can audition right now. Okay? So the lady is like, that's not how we work. You must give us a demo, and then a station manager must listen to it with the programs manager, and then they must decide on whether you're good enough. I'm like, but I'm here. I'm sure both of them are in the office somewhere. So just call them. I'll sit. So the station manager was walking past when all of this was happening. He's like, okay, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, come, let's go. Says to me, it is now 12 o'clock. I've got a sports bulletin at 12:15. I need 3 stories from you. There's an office, in there there's a laptop, in there there's a notebook. You've got 7 minutes. Jumped in there, researched a few stories, wrote them down, said to me, come, let's go. I'm gonna cue you in. When this light here goes red, then you must speak, right? We did that, got my radio job on the spot. Went in, did 3 sports bulletins, cricket, rugby, and tennis. So the station that I'm talking about is called Mix FM. They were based in Midrand. For those of you that got DSTV, it's on audio bouquet. I'm not sure what channel number that is. So I then became one of the 2 black people working in that white rock radio station, right? So walked in there, and I was tasked to go do a sports show on a Sunday night, 8 o'clock, or when everybody else is preparing to go back to school and go back to work. And I'm sitting on radio talking about what happened. Chiefs Pirates, but for me, it was not even about who's listening, but it's about how then do I perfect this thing? How then do I get it right? So, and I mentioned the radio story because the radio story was where the direction of my life changed, right? So did radio, doing a sports show for quite a few months. The guy that hired me as a station manager had a breakfast show on weekends that he was doing. He needed to go on leave, did not know who to put in that slot, right? Because the team that he worked with could not operate the desk, right? They were coming in every single day, sit behind the mic and speak, and then he'll tell them, okay, we are going in in 3 seconds. They would speak, then say, okay, we are gone. I, in my late shifts, started fiddling with that big board. So what is this? What does this do, right? So I then mastered how to work the desk. So when they needed a stand-in presenter, he didn't want to go for because, let's empower each other here, right? So black empowerment is very important, but we're not going to empower you because you're black. We're going to empower you because you're black and qualified. So meaning we'll empower you on merits, right? So the guy then says to me, I need a stand-in. I need somebody who's going to stand in for me. So safe, right? So I think you are the best person for the job because the guys that I work with don't know how to operate the desk. I'm like, listen, Saturdays and Sundays are my chill days, so I'll be here. Don't stress. So I come in. The guy went on leave. True story, never returned. When he returned, he was a programs manager, fella, not an on-air talent. Because we took over that slot, right? So then I had a sports show and a breakfast show on weekends. The lady that was sitting there every single day or every single weekend saying, it's now 7 o'clock, here are news headlines. During the week, Monday to Friday, works as a brand manager for Tata Africa, right? So Tata Africa, so they own companies like Jaguar Land Rover, Taj Hotel, TCS, Jaguar Land Rover, TCS, the Taj Hotel, and many other companies that they own around the world. They've got 13 business units or business units in 13 African markets as we speak. So this lady sits in Sandton, manages the entire continent, right? And she's just a newsreader. So her agency were looking for a PR accounts manager, right? For her account. She then says to me, I think I've got a job for you. Says to her client, I've got a guy for you who I think is best suited for this position that you're looking for. One, as a young boy from Rustenburg, I get to work in PR, guys. I've never heard of this thing called public relations, ever. I get to work in this thing. This lady says, no, I've got a guy for you. So gives my contact details to this other lady who's the COO of that company. Her name is Michelle Robertson. So Michelle calls me and says, hey, I got your number from Zbanibani. Can I see you for coffee? And I'm like, okay, sure. When? No, this day, where? Okay, sharp. I rock up there. And this lady starts telling me her company's history. No, 19 Mamang, who's the founder. Hey, wara, this is what we do. These are our clients. I said to her, okay, Tani, why are you telling me all of this thing? Like, why? What's going on? She's like, no, because we were told we need to hire you because you're the right person for the job. Okay. Doing what exactly? No, we need a PR accounts manager. What is PR? Right? So we're at an interview, so I'm about to start asking all these questions, right? So what's PR? No, okay. Oh, okay. So people get paid to do this. She's like, yeah. And I'm like, but I do this every day for Mahala, guys, right? So she's like, no, so it's fine. Zwagala, you'll learn on the job, right? So literally I come back, 1st of April I start, April Fool's Day. So I'm thinking it's an April Fool's joke. So we go spanning, let's try and compete with the noise. So I get go this company, I start doing the work, right? And the first client that I work with is my friend at radio. She then says to me, Monday to Friday, I'm your boss. On weekends, different conversation, right?
Yeah, they like loud cars. Yeah.
So then, then I learn on the job. So I then start learning everything. So what do PR people do? How do they do it? Wara. And I really immerse myself in this thing. So I then go and look for PR graduates. So go school and study. What is this? Speak to the people that have been in the business long enough. Needless to say that I stayed with that business for a good 7 years, right? So I literally stayed in the industry for that long, right? So worked on multinational companies. So I worked for Tata Africa, traveled to India to go see how they do business in India. Worked for Coca-Cola, worked for PPC, the cement business. But then I got, then I was the only guy in the team, right? In my PR team. So Manchester City were coming to South Africa in 2013. So when they were here, they needed people to help them with PR when they're in the country. Chief, you love football, ne? Yes, okay. We've got a football client there. Run with it. I'm like, okay. Now I know Man United, the Man City, never heard of it. Giti Man U. I've seen Pellegrini somewhere. I've seen Vincent Kompany. My football, so let's do it, right? So Man City then became my first sports client. There was something about that client that set my soul on fire, right? And I loved it, and I immersed myself in this thing. I did not know who Man City was up until 2013. I had never worked on a sports brand since ever up until 2013. But something about that account set my soul on fire. We clapped this thing out of the park, and then I was then given another account, the ICC cricket tour. So the ICC were having the World Cup in South Africa. So they were having it, not South Africa. So the trophy was coming to Africa, and they needed somebody to help them with PR around the trophy tour. So going from South Africa to Botswana to Zimbabwe to Kenya and all of those things, right? I had never been anywhere else except Botswana. So I'd never been to Zim, I'd never been to Kenya. So I did not know what the hell was going on in those markets, right? But the person in me decided, I know, I'm taking this one. Cricket, right? Trophy, so we can make this thing work. And we did that. And we did such great work with that client again, where I felt like if ever I were to leave and start my own thing, I know exactly what that I want to do, right? So in between all of this thing, I then started another company. which was called Leano Communications. Somebody said to me, that's a horrible name that you could ever give in a business. Because Leano, we are the plan, our planisa, with a man. So it could have, that's a bad, you're not inspiring confidence on Tarkin Leano business consultants. What are you guys doing there? So I then started this business with 3 of my friends again. That business failed, so it was almost like failure to launch. So with every failed business that I've been involved in, I've always taken the time back to sit back and ask myself, what went wrong? And what are some of the key lessons that I can take out of this thing? So what went wrong is that I was the common denominator. That's the first thing in all of this thing. The second thing was that in every business that I've partnered with, things have not gone the way I wanted them to go, because we get excited with, let's start a business as the Chomi. But the question is, do we have the same idea? Do you have the same drive? Do you have the same passion? Do you have the same work ethic? Right? If the answer to any of those questions is no, then maybe pause and reevaluate your strategy. Right? So I did not ask those questions. One, Gile business in Lengwanyana out of excitement did not ask whether we had the same ideas and the same passion, the same vision. That business failed. Common denominator. Started a second business with 3 of my friends. That business had failure to launch. One, purely because we didn't have the same, we didn't ask the right questions, right? And as a result, it failed. Common denominator, right? Then I said, okay, so if 2-3 businesses have failed that I've been involved in, what are the key lessons? So maybe Iliwani and see if I'll have the same outcome, right? Because insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results, right? So I've taken a few lessons. I'm the common denominator, so maybe I don't work well with people, or maybe whatever the case is. So maybe let Eric one. So in 2016, decided I'm going to start another business. So said, this time around, we're going to do things slightly different. So registered a business, 1 man, and then said, I've got a job, I'm not quitting this job again, because I've quit the job before and we all know what happened before. So I'm going to stick to my day job that pays the bills, and I'm going to do this business as a passion project on weekends and after hours. So did that 2016, 2017, 2018. At the beginning of 2018, I decided I need to have a target that I'm working towards. What's the target? The target is, at the end of this year, I need to quit my job to go run my business full time. That was my plan. I said to my boss back then, I said to her, listen, we came back from Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, what chanti, so we've got back to work induction. So, she sits with all of us one-on-one. We start having chat about the new year. What's your goal for the year? My goal for the year was, Mama, I'm quitting at the end of the year. That was my goal for the year. She says, what do you mean? I'm like, no, you were asking me what's my goal for the year. So I'm telling you, in my head, as I was sitting at home, mapping stuff down, when people were making resolutions for 2018, mine was 31st December 2018, I'm out. Right? We laughed at it, but it's a joke. Ha 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 ha. I started working on my exit plan in 2018. So what was my exit plan? My exit plan was very simple. As a business person, you need to have a plan. That's the first thing. So when people speak about missions and visions, so what's your mission for the business? What's your vision for the business? So my plan was, I needed to make sure that I leave this job that I currently have, number one. Number two, get to a space and a point where I've got enough money and enough clients to sustain me for the next 6 months after I quit my job, right? So for me to get to that point, it will not happen overnight or via osmosis. I needed to put in the work. So I worked from 8 until 4 every single day at my day job. And I decided, because I'm committing 8 hours to my 9 to 5, I need to commit 8 hours to my business. Right? So this then became how I did things. So I would go to work 8 o'clock and then leave at 4, get stuck in traffic for 2 hours, get home at 6. 8 o'clock, I put in my 8 hours. Every single day without fail. Right? In the beginning, it was a bit hard. But for me, it was about laying the foundation, right? And if I was disciplined enough to dedicate 8 hours to my 9 to 5, surely I can dedicate another 8 hours to this thing that I call my passion and my dream, right? So I did that. So in June of that year, I said to my boss, hey, because okay, she's like, no, it's fine. You are entitled to leave. So take the leave and go. So I then take leave. I can go leaving, guys. Things became very clear. We are 3 months ahead of schedule. So we can quit earlier than expected. So I then come back from my leave after my birthday. I said to my boss, get ready to have a general conversation. Ogarke resign at the end of July. She's like, no, you can't. And I'm like, we had this conversation. I said to you, I'm going to quit at the end of the year. So it's now midway through the year. So I'm telling you, I'm quitting 3 months earlier than expected. We laughed again for the second time. Ha ha ha, it's a joke. Okay. 1st of July, I come to the office and I'm like, there's my resignation letter. End of July, I'm out. She's like, no, you must give me 2 months notice. I'm like, with pleasure. 2 months. You take your 2 months. On the 23rd of September 2018 was the last day that I was in corporate. Left my job in 2018. But the story between January, June, and September was that then I started doing work for everyone because I needed to create a clientele. So Bulani wants a PR agency to help them with whatever, I'll take it. Zbane wants this thing to do this thing, I'll take it, right? So our core business was really centered around communications. But I can tell you, for 6 months of our existence, we did not do anything communications related. You wanted windows cleaned. We know how to clean windows. We'll clean the windows. You want this thing done. We know. What was the reason behind this? We wanted to create enough capital so that by the time we leave our job, there's money to start working from, right? So in the 9 months that I was employed, I literally cut down my living expenses. So I said, do I need a house? And maybe I do need a house, so the house stays, right? Do I need a car? So I'm sure I can still come by. Sold my car. I don't need a car, so I can sell it, it's fine. So how much do I owe the bank? I owe the bank 70,000 rand. I can get my car sold for 120. It's a good business decision. For sale board, private sale. Sold my Polo that I loved with all of my heart for 120,000 rand. Paid the bank 69.8 thousand rand that I owed them. Had 50,000 rand back in my pocket, right? Who do I owe? Gekota mamang turanta, mamang bogana. There, everybody is paid. I don't owe anybody anything, right? So downgraded my life completely. The biggest mistake, or the biggest fear that I had, ne? Kineke jola at the time, so this girl, that's what she knows. Skirleke koloi hayo tshwantse anong ko khomba ha tsentse ko mwana sentse ke motsare kana how do I get a taxi to your house, you know? So I was ready for her to go. Had she come and said to me, hey Malum, I can't do this for your stuff of yours, I would have understood. You're such a big dreamer, I would have understood, right? So but for me, her leaving was the least of my problems. My why was bigger than many other things, right? So in those 9 months, downgraded my life. So sold my car, went back to using public transport. I could not sell my house because then I would be homeless, right? But cut out other things that I did not need. I did not need to go out every day, so it's fine. I did not need to go out once a month. It was fine, so I could live with that, right? So my living expenses got slashed completely. All I needed is the bond paid. Is the electricity in the house? Do you have got enough money to go to work and come back? Yes, I do. That's enough. The rest of the money, one side, right? So saved up enough money in those 9 months to make sure that in the event that I don't have clients whilst in business, I've got savings that I can live off, right? So 23rd of September, quit my job. So did work for everybody. So whether you wanted whatever you wanted, I could make a plan. You know, I would make a plan for you for this thing to be done. And I did work for everybody because I needed the money and I needed to, to start building a brand for myself, right? And yeah, so that's how the entrepreneurial journey happened. I'll pause for now for another question.
You shared so many nuggets, which is why I because you answered quite a number of my questions, right? All the way from don't stop being curious. Be curious enough to research, to learn, and be bold enough to go out there and throw yourself out there, even if it's things that you don't even know. Opportunities knock on the door. Sometimes explore those new opportunities, even if you don't know. But I think one of my personal things that stood out the most for me is be diligent in your work. Because when you're diligent in your work and you deliver, it opens up other opportunities. I mean, I don't know what you guys heard. I mean, how many people picked up more than 2 or 3 nuggets from what was shared by this amazing gent? So that I don't take up all the time, I'll just give an opportunity to 2 individuals or 3. If you've got a question, 2. If you've got a question, I've got the lady at the back with the glasses. Anyone else? Question? Did they? Gent? And the gent, the gent with the black frame glasses. Please come to the front, man. Let's give you a chance to come through. Please, my lady, as well. If you can just join us, I'll ask this gentleman. But so your story is.
Yeah. So as they're coming, I'll do injustice if I don't share this thing with you. So. In the many things that I've spoken about that I do, so I skipped a very important part. So when I was 18 years old, I lost both my parents, right? So my mother passed away on the 25th of February. My dad passed away on the 10th of October, same year, right? So I remember in the beginning I said the 6 of us go high. I'm the second oldest. So when my parents passed away, my older brother was 4 years my senior. So he was 21, 22 when my parents passed away. I was 17, my sister was 13. My parents had a thing about 4s and 6s, right? So there's a 4-year gap between all of us, 1 up until 5. 6, it's a longer gap, right? So I was, my older brother was 21, I was 17, my sister was 13, Omongonale 9, Omongonale 5. When my parents passed away. So society would then call us, child-headed households. So and a lot of lessons came out of losing my parents, where because we were all on our own. So we then needed to fend for ourselves and figure out how to navigate through this life thing, because no one prepares you for that, right? You wake up one day, your parents are here, you go to bed, you wake up, they're not there anymore. So you instantly become a parent. And no one really prepares you for parenthood, because today I must figure out how I'm going to get the bread, right? So, and in my moment of desperation, as I sat in my sacred space with God and I said, I need things done, I made a commitment and I said, if you can get me out of this rut that I find myself in, my commitment to you is that as soon as Kiba sharp, I'm going to pay it forward, right? So, in the bio that was read, I was called a chairperson of the NGO somewhere. What I really am, I'm a volunteer at this NGO that I've started. So we've got an NGO that looks after child-headed households, right? Purely because I'm from a child-headed household and I understand the challenges that come with coming out of a child-headed household. And I know the risks involved with growing up in a child-headed household, because I could have become a criminal and blamed it on where I come from. My sister could have gone to the extreme and said, because my parents are not here, therefore, this is why I turn out like this, right? None of us are in prison as we speak. All of us are still alive. All of us are working. Reshapu, we are good members of society, I think. Members in good standing in society, right? So, and the commitment that I've made to myself is that for as long as I'm above ground, I'm going to give back to the people that made me who I am. Because this community here, Tlhabane, made me the person that I am. So, me next door, front opposite, back opposite, were there to guide us when we strayed away from what we knew as the right path, right? And They may not have given us money, they may not have given us any other thing, but the love and support and care that they gave to all of us groomed me to be the man that I am today. And therefore, it was very important that I then come back and I start giving back, to the people that made me who I am, number one. And that's why every single year without fail, I take 5% of the company profits and I give them back to child-headed households.
Round of applause, man. Wow.
I was trying to fill the gap so that to avoid radio silence.
Yeah, so you can go ask your question.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Tlhabane Tsela speaking here, an aspiring filmmaker. I shot the film, I produced sound on the short film that was casted in Rustenburg Festival film. It's called Fix. You can check it on Nolan Studios. My question to you, sir, it's according to your experience in PR, rather in multimedia, is it best for someone who is starting to do organic marketing to the business? That's the first question. And the second question, as you know, as you grow in Rustenburg, most times and in most instances, they are not based in media. Their mindset is based in mind. What is the best platform would you recommend someone in Rustenburg to take so that they can see their dream being executed? Thank you.
Do I shoot? Or okay. Sure. Look, I think there's no rule book in terms of would I advise somebody to do this thing or not, because so don't do it because Nnusi is doing it, but do it because there's a passion for it, and don't do it because you think there's money in it, because people that are money driven end up doing all the wrong things in pursuit of money, right? So if your heart is in the right place and if the passion is there for you to pursue the things that you want to pursue, because also what we need to be mindful of is that people know only what they're exposed to. So if all that you know is mining, that's all that you're exposed to, that's all that you end up knowing and end up doing. So expand your horizons, research and find out other things that you are passionate about. So the biggest question that people confuse is, so what's the difference between your passion and your gift? Right? So there's always a very thin line between the two. Because Thabo dlala bolo, le nna ke dlala bolo because I saw it go tap. But that might not be my talent, right? So my simple explanation of the difference between the two is that your gift is that thing that you do with the least amount of effort, right? Example, guys, I've been sitting and I've been talking. Brian asked me 2 questions and I've been talking for a good 40 minutes. One man, right? So my gift is in storytelling. So I can paint the picture and tell you stories for days, right? So that's my gift. That's what I'm good at. And that's why the decision to follow PR was a simple one, because I'm a storyteller by profession or by nature. That's what I do. I tell stories. So whereas I went and studied something that I was passionate about, which was computer sciences. It was not my gift, but it was my passion. So it's about understanding that thin line between those two things of what is my passion and what is my gift. And don't do it because another person who's sitting next to you is doing it. So, Tlhabane, to answer your question, if your heart is in the right place, if the desire and the passion is there, do it. And don't do it because a drive a Maserati, because you don't know exactly why they drive that Maserati and where they got it from. And you don't know if they got that money from doing what they're doing. Did I answer both questions? I think I tried to answer them all in one. Okay.
Dumelang, Lina laka ke Tlhabane and I run Nnusi Digital. My question is, when you were speaking, more especially your story from Cape Town, you moved to Cape Town and you came back. It's something which I could identify with, more especially as an entrepreneur. But what I want to ask you is, during the course of your entrepreneurship, there's a lot of delusion that comes with being an entrepreneur. There's a lot of false ideologies which we have as entrepreneurs. How then do you segregate those two delusion from delusion, and then entrepreneurial delusion that I know my business is going to make it, even if it takes around 10 to 15 years, right? So that's my first question. The second question is, I hear you mentioning a lot Kamjolo, and I read a book from Leanne Sandberg that says that a woman's partner states how they are going to do in business. So in terms of especially heterosexual relationships, what would you advise more especially young African female entrepreneurs to look for in relationships, and what to consider in terms of their businesses? Thank you.
Okay, so I will answer you. How Ntebal. So I'm not an expert on Mujolong, ne? So I was making Mujolo references as a joke. So I'm not an expert on Mujolong. So don't listen to me because hey, what are every day? So so I'm not an expert on Mujolong. So my reference here Mujolo was really about, you know, to bring a lightness in what I perceive to be a very serious conversation. There's nothing wrong with Mujolo. It's a beautiful thing. The girl that I spoke to you about, Kiri, I thought she was gonna leave. She did not leave me. Instead, she married me. Right? So don't take my advice about Mujolo. So please, I'm gonna lead you astray. But to answer your other question about what we're not told about business is that, guys, go business matata, guys. Go business, stress. People don't tell all of those things. You see people in business, you're thinking, I know, they're flourishing, right? So I'll tell you a personal story. So after quitting my job in 2018 to go start my own business, for 7 months, I did not have any money coming in. Nope, I had no business, none whatsoever. So meaning I was living off my savings. And then month number 5, those savings started getting depleted. So, and I could not pay the bond. I remember that month. I could not pay AfriHost. I had an internet plan in AfriHost, 199 rand. And I could not pay them for that month. My emails are also sitting AfriHost to get the 9 rand for them to keep my emails up and running every single month. I could not pay them that month. But no one tells you about those things. Opala maspala 250 rand takas. Opala ISP how 179 rand. Ya hor on the internet ga montlu. When that point airtime advance because you need to call people, but how not shelter airtime. So why do you shelter airtime because it's provided in So no one tells you all of those things, and people make it seem like when you're in business you're gonna make money. My business started operating in 2016. I started making money end of 2019. So for 3 years, I get 10,000 rand today, 3,000 rand 3 months later. I only started making decent money 2019. The business made its first million only in 2021. That's when I started making my first million in the business. Right? So if which ties into what I wanted to speak about later on, to say, as business people or aspiring business people sitting in this room, we need to ask ourselves a few questions. One, why are we in business? Right? If you're in business because you want to make money, let me wake you up from this dream, woman. If you're in business because you want business to fund your lifestyle, right? Because your business is not there to fund your lifestyle. I am not self-employed. I have a business that has employed me. I draw a salary from the business. Can I pay sleepy from my own business? Can I meeting with the shareholder to speak about my increase, if eating? Who are the shareholders? Rashid. So I'm employed by the business. I'm not self-employed. So in the business, I pay myself X amount of money. When that money has run out, it is my problem as an employee of the business of how I'm going to do this thing. It's not the business problem that I've run out of money. My inability to budget my own money should not affect the running of the business. So if you're in business because you want a business to fund your lifestyle, you go buy chase because you are in it for the wrong reasons, right? So I'll tell you why I'm in business, right? In the interest of time. One, I'm in business because there's a need for what I do. There's a market for what I do. That's the first reason why I'm in business. Number two, I'm in business because I need to play my part in addressing the unemployment issue that this country is facing. Right? So we hear people speaking about, no, you know, the problem or the solution to our problem lies in entrepreneurship. That is very true. But the same people who are saying that they're not doing anything to empower these businesses that must employ other people, right? So mine is to make sure that every single year I employ at least 2 people in my business. So in the long run, so over the past 5 years, I've been able to employ 7 people in my business. So I've contributed towards 7 people not being out of a job. My plan is every year I must bring in 2 other people to come into the business. So 5 years from now, I should have at least about 17 employees in my business. So I'm not in business because right? My life has not changed. My business has made millions over the years. My lifestyle has remained the same. I still drive the smallest car, live in the smallest house, and the same salary that I've earned 2 years ago. So I've not had a salary increase in 2 years from my own business. Chelta DSTV, le phone, le petrolo. Has a problem business, right? So what people don't tell you is the fact that business no matata. You know, you must make sure that the business remains afloat. You are compliant, because guys, non-compliance is an expensive thing to ever go through. Non-compliance is the most expensive thing that any business can ever go through. So if you got a SARS, you did not do your returns, you did not comply with this and that. For you to come back to being compliant, that whole process is an expensive process, right? So you need to be mindful of why are you in business. Don't go open a car wash because next door in the car wash and the car wash seems to be doing very well. You don't know why he's there, and you don't know what his business model is. So therefore, just because it worked Kamo doesn't mean it's going to work here, right? So you need to be very honest about why are you in this business, and what value is this business bringing back to you and to the people that you are supposed to be serving. So so the delusion here is that there's money in business. The delusion is that as soon as you start, you're going to start making truckloads of money. The delusion here is the fact that I know it's easy to do all of those things. It takes time, it takes research, it takes discipline, it takes diligence. So even today, after the work that I'm doing work for multiple companies today across multiple markets, right? What I always tell my clients at pitch level and even post-pitch level is the fact that what you can never be in doubt of is the great work that we are going to do for you as a business, right? So my company name is called Kgotla PR and Communications. So I should have started there and really speak about why the name Kgotla PR. So Kgotla is a derivative of the word Lekgotla. Not the Lekgotla that people are having and discussing motlakase and all sorts of things, but Lekgotla where the small village just outside the border mall. And I go high on a lady, the Khotlanyana, Honana Makotla, so people go there purely because they are looking for solutions. Hore bulalane ma bani ki bona kukile pudia ka koma khetlengahe. We bulaile ha sule ke bona. So but ki mutse go le khotleng gore le khotla banna ba le khotla ba bantseng fa ba nthusa go tla ka solution, right? So I then said, as a business, I want to be solutions driven. So so we are sitting here as the council, for lack of a better word. You are coming to us and say, guys, here's my problem. I need a solution. We, as must give you a solution. That's where the name of my business came from. We see ourselves as solution-driven business. So, and that comes from a name. So think about how Ubizangwana, how rela, but I've seen this with people. How Hodisabana, Ubiza Bolrato, bomamang. So because they hear this thing on a regular basis, they then end up living out that which they are called, right? So the more people call us as batho ba ko lekgotleng, the more people say that, the more we start believing that we can actually give you the solutions that you're asking for. So we are then, when you call us, we answer. Banna ba ko lekgotleng, yeah. Batho ba ko lekgotleng, yeah. So we are affirming that which you are calling us. Eventually, this then becomes the blueprint of what we do. This then becomes a part of our DNA, that we see ourselves as batho ba ko lekgotleng who are there to give you solutions. And we see ourselves as solutions-driven business. So that's where the madness behind the name came from, to say, how then do you want to see yourself as a business? How then do you want people to remember you? So when people mention your name, what is the first thing that you want them to remember? What is that value proposition? And that is, we are solutions driven.
Ladies and gentlemen, no, let's give him another round of applause. Thank you so much to Mr. Gazi. I don't know if he's still leaving or not, but we're going to have the final part in the program, which is the pitch announcement, and then we're going to grab a bite. But if he's still around, just ask him questions, a wealth of knowledge. Thank you for your time, sir. We really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
So, I talk a lot, guys. I'm very shy, but when I get comfortable, ziyakhala. So thank you for the time and the audience. Bulane, I feel honored to be here. It's very rare that you get to come home and speak to your people, because there's a myth here where a prophet is not respected in their own city. There's a thing like that where you come from will not celebrate you, right? And I feel that I owe you the biggest of things. You know, you've allowed me to come back home. About who I am, because we can relate to each other. Hagiwaga Doctors Fanyetso, they know exactly what I'm talking about. Hagiwaga Juice Ups, they know exactly what I'm talking about. Hagiwaga Khatsheng, they know, right? So thank you for the time and the audience that you've given to me, and I hope Kilifile as much as I've been able to receive from all of you. And I'm hoping that here at Tswafa, we live here richer than when we came in. And may our businesses flourish. May we come back to our very own people and communities and plow back and really restore this place to what we have known it to be, number one. Number two, we need to come back and reinvest in our own communities so that we are then better placed, so we then leave this world better than we found it, right? So I always say to people, the money that I have, the things that I have, they mean nothing to me if I'm not able to pay it forward for the next person. So I'm hoping that Tlhabane richer than when we came in, and then we'll then be able to go back into our own communities and plow back and make a difference, and may your business succeed. May you surpass that which you want to achieve, and yeah. So let's build this community, let's build this country, and let's invest back in our own township economies, and let's not go back when we should be buying from each other. Let's not go out there and support other people when we could be supporting each other, because you're only as strong as the people around you. And we're not in competition, guys. So the pie is big enough for all of us. I always said to people, and I said last, so I always said to people that the pie is big enough for all of us. If we learn how to share this pie, it's big enough for all of us, right? So when I've got something that I can't do, I'll always outsource it. So I'm horrible at digital marketing, horrible, right? But there's a lady that I work with. Whenever I get a client that wants a whole thing, I take the job, I give it to her. She makes the money. When she gets another business, and for something that she can't do, what I want back as a payback is for her to open the door for the next person. So we were networking earlier on, we exchanged business cards. Let it not just be for fun, but think about what else is the next person sitting next to you doing, and how else can you refer more business to them? Because if I win, you win. If you win, she wins. If all of us win, or if each one of us wins, then the bigger community wins, because none of us are self-made and none of us are here for ourselves, Right. Thank you.